For me, I'm always attentive to what's around my environment. I live in Boyle Heights, and I still see a lot of things that happen in that community, but I also see the goodness that comes out of the community. And every single one of us here tells a story and has a story to tell. And this is something I shared with the leadership class on Tuesday, and I think it's very important. And sometimes we have to take a step back and sit back and recollect the story we are telling, maybe. So for example, I'll give you glimpses of how I do self-care or how I reflect on my time. So the 6th Street Bridge, right? The 6th Street Bridge that takes me from Boyle Heights into downtown Los Angeles, it was constructed in 1932. And that 6th Street Bridge, there was times when I walk across it, and as an artist, I think about the architect who designed it. And I put myself in 1932 and I say, I wonder what was taking place when this was being constructed. I wonder who were those great people that built this thing and their stories they had to tell, for example. And then once I cross the 6th Street Bridge, I end up on 5th and Croc, or St. Julian, which leads me to Skid Row, making way to my studio. So then I look around Skid Row and I see the people that are walking there, some mentally ill, some stuck on heroin, drugs, and some of them not knowing where they're going. But they have a story to tell as well. And they also contribute to my recovery because they're reflections of what can happen if I continue in my drug addiction or where I can end up. So that inspires me to continue on my path. And they too have a story to tell. And once I pass Skid Row, sometimes, like for example, this Memorial Day weekend, how do I tell my story to my children? And the Alley River, for me, is like my playground. And it's always been since I was 5 years old. And 5 years old. When I was like 7 and 8 years old, I would go to the Alley River. And I would spend most of my times in the Alley River because it was like my big brother that I never had. I'm the oldest of my family, so the Alley River became my big brother. It would embrace me, it was peaceful, it was no one's territory, it was like my own sanctuary. Until this day, I still go back to the Alley River once in a while and sit my ass on the hill and watch the river and trip out on the ducks and recollect those memories that I once had when I was 8, 9 years old, and re-inspire myself to continue creating. This Memorial Day weekend, it was important for me to take my children down there. Now, I call it a parenting class and shit, because some people might say, what are you doing with these kids down here? It's dangerous and shit. Like, really, So I still went down there, and when we went down there, there was LAPD, and my kids were like, the cops are there, the cops are there. I go, it's okay, they're not gonna do shit, it's all right, well, you with me, I'm the father, look. So we walked through, the cops said hello, ignored us, and I took them all the way down to the river. And I was telling them stories about what I used to do when I was a kid, how we used to jump on the inner tubes and allow the riverbed take us all the way to Long Beach, to Inglewood. And for those who remember from the Alley River, we used to have fun in that way. We didn't have technology in the 80s. You're lucky if you had an Atari. And so now that I said I gave some glimpses, I better put it down and cut it short. So one of my stops is also the cemetery. So not only is it the bridge that gives me the inspiration to allow me to believe that the bridge is a symbol of transformation, of winning one point to another, and the Alley River, which is my nurturing sanctuary that holds my spirit and recollects my memories as I was a child, and Skid Row, that reminds me of where I can end up if I continue my addiction, and the cemetery. And the cemetery is a place that I like to go because every time I walk through those tombstones, I can hear my own footprints as I'm smashing on those dry leaves, as if someone's following me. And I'm now staring at these tombstones from 1820, 1939, and all these years, and there was this one that said Garza, a Vietnam veteran, and I think about what he did for us and the country, and how he was killed in Vietnam, leaving his family and children behind. He too tells a story. So by looking at these tombstones, it makes me reflect and say to myself, how is it that I want to be remembered? So that's the question today. How is it that you want to be remembered before you leave this earth? It is important. I was given a second chance to continue to flip the page of my book and continue to tell my story. My story could have ended in that freeway incident when I tried to commit suicide, but God said no. Continue, write your chapters. And I'm blessed for the fact that I was given the opportunity. So today and every day, I ask myself, how is it that I want to be remembered? So I leave you with that, and think about that, because we're all going to end up in the cemetery, whether we're rich, whether we're poor, whether we have titles, we have no titles, it doesn't matter. We all end up there. But how is it that you want to be remembered? Leave you with that, hold that in your heart, and may you guys have a great day.